I see a little bit of myself in Bitcoin because I see Bitcoin as a rebellious act because it's the solution to the problem we've had for so long, and it doesn't care. It just is designed to do what it does, and it just carries on. Regardless of anything else, regardless of what else happens around it, it will always do its thing. So I just resonated with it because all my life, really, I will stand out as a little bit rebellious.
Today, I'm excited to welcome Phil to the podcast. Phil is a Bitcoiner, freedom lover, co-founder of minisiggy.com. He's anti-woke, anti-racism, anti-WEF, anti-WHO, anti-fiat, and anti-globalist. Welcome to the Bitcoin Age, Phil.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I noticed there when you introduced me, I seem to be anti a lot of things.
Yes, I was noticing that. So we'll get into that, but tell us a little bit about yourself and what attracted you to Bitcoin.
I think what really got me into Bitcoin was, I suppose, natural curiosity in the first place. I think it's part of how I see Bitcoiners largely is they're the type of people who find Bitcoin because they're inquisitive, because they question things, and because they're looking for answers, if you like. Whereas most people are just going about their daily lives, follow the rules, follow the laws, and sort of just slot in, you know. But I think it largely came into view after something that happened with the business. Our business is electronic cigarettes, which is we're online only. We don't have shops anywhere or anything like that. We've always dealt online and just in the UK. And we used uh, PayPal for, well, up to a certain point. We'd used them for about 10, 12 years. And we used it for customers to check out with, to just to, instead of using a card or anything, they all preferred to use PayPal. It was quite convenient. And we put literally hundreds of thousands through PayPal every month. Very little issues with it. There were almost no refunds or anything like that. So kind of a perfect account for PayPal, you would think. Um, and then one day we had nothing from PayPal. They didn't tell us anything. They didn't email us, contact us. First we knew about it was our customers were emailing and phoning. I can't pay on your website. I don't know why I use PayPal to pay and I can't pay. So we started looking into it then because there were lots of calls coming in and we weren't taking any payments. We had no other way to take payments at the time. And we eventually found out that PayPal had frozen the account. So we tried to find out why, tried to get it rectified. And they didn't give us a reason. No reason. They just said your account is frozen while we investigate breaches of our policies or whatever it was. So we said, what about the money in there? And they said, well, we'll keep that until the investigation is over. And it was over £100,000 in there at the time. And we used to take it out in sort of every 2, 3 weeks. But largely we kept it in there because we thought it wasn't really a problem. So that caused us a huge problem in cash flow because when you're missing over £100,000 and you've been stopped from taking orders from customers online, it almost killed us just in one swoop, really. And eventually we were digging and digging and trying to find out, trying to get hold of the money mostly. But they said they were able to keep that for 6 months while they investigate. So they did, to the day, kept it for 6 months. We asked what their investigation revealed, and they didn't tell us anything. So we said, can we continue to use? Not that we wanted to after that. But I said, can we continue to use PayPal? No. You're banned effectively. You're cancelled. The account's closed. We found out in that during that 6 months as well that it wasn't just our business. They started closing and freezing accounts of family members with the surname. So they connected them and decided to cancel those too, for no reason. There were no breaches of any policy. And electronic cigarettes, we thought it's because they were electronic cigarettes and they just don't like it. But they're legal. They're perfectly legal. And they did it previously for 10, 12 years with us, and they knew exactly what we did. So for no reason given, missing over 100,000. And I think that's what led myself and my brother that run the business. We had to really quickly try and find a merchant that we could use to take card payments. So yeah, we started talking about things, and during those few weeks, we were looking into different ways. And my brother actually came across Bitcoin previously, and he started looking more into it. And then as we started talking more about it, I'd never heard of it before. Why? I've heard him talking about it, but I'd sort of dismissed it as just some sort of internet token, like just a token to buy something just on the internet. So I sort of hadn't read about it and just dismissed it. But the more I sort of talked to my brother about it, he knew more about it than I did at the time. He started taking it quite seriously, so I thought I should start taking it quite seriously. As you know, the more you look into it, the more you read about it, the more you understand it. And there was a certain point, I think, where it really clicked. The penny dropped, and you sort of understand what it is, what it really is, and what it can do. And then then I started buying it and buying it and buying it. I sort of wish I'd bought it a couple of years beforehand when I heard about it. But I started buying it about 2015, and not long after all that stuff had happened with PayPal. My brother, I think, has started buying it a little bit before me. But it was useful to have him actually, because we were in the office and we talk across desks all the time. He's a bit more, how can I describe it? He's a bit more nerdy than I am. So he tends to really delve into things. So it was really good to have him actually telling me about it. And then I just generally watch YouTube videos rather than read about something. So I'm on YouTube. I was watching every YouTube video I could find on it. And yeah, that's really how we started. But when I started buying it, I didn't really, at that point, understand what it was fully. I knew I should probably have some, so I just bought small amounts. As it really clicks, you then start to think, Christ, I should be putting everything, really, into this and not the other stuff, because that's going to be valuable. I think it's when it dawns on you when you realize this whole scarcity thing, along with the decentralization and just value alone in being peer-to-peer, especially after what we experienced with PayPal.
And do you accept Bitcoin payments for your business?
That's the one thing we can't do. We talked about it, and we did have it on our website. We accept Bitcoin. Nobody ever used it to pay in Bitcoin. But we got a little bit of kickback from our customers about the sign being there, Bitcoin accepted. And the kickback from it was everyone is under as you'll hear it a lot, you would have heard it a lot, everyone's under the impression Bitcoin is some type of scam. So they were then questioning whether, because we accept Bitcoin, are you trying to scam people with the Bitcoin? So we said, no, you can't really explain to somebody over a sort of a 5-minute telephone conversation what it is and try and change their that mindset, you'd have to go through the whole thing. So we just decided to take it down then. It wasn't getting used, and it was scaring off a few customers. It was ringing alarm bells in their heads. So we just thought, no, just take it down. We would like to take Bitcoin. It would be perfect for us, especially being online only. But it's not at that stage where we'd be able to take it really. I think when it's generally more acceptable, when we get to that stage, we'll be one of the first to take it. Absolutely.
Yeah, we need that global adoption and for Bitcoin to be used as money. And
When we even talked about giving discount to people who used Bitcoin to pay. So we thought we tried to sell it as an incentive for customers. We thought we'll give them 25% off if they pay in Bitcoin, which we thought was a great sort of incentive, really. But they didn't even go for that. It was like just knew nothing about it, just ignorant of it completely.
You were too early. So
Too early.
let's go to your pinned tweet because I really like that. You say Bitcoin embodies the spirit of financial freedom and decentralization, aligning perfectly with your values. Tell us how this applies to you.
But that's the pin post, I think, regarding the Reform Party in the UK. I joined their community, a Reform Party army, if you like. But I got kicked off there for posting about Bitcoin. They said it was unacceptable. I can't remember what the post was now. And then I breached their community rules or something. But I thought actually it aligns perfectly with Reform voters, people who want change, people who like sovereignty and very anti the things I am as well, anti-globalist, anti-wet, things like that, and want change in this country. So I thought that was perfect for them. But apparently those who were moderating that community thought otherwise. Were very strange.
Yeah, that is part of the problem that a lot of people still don't understand Bitcoin. Some
Yeah,
people understand the problem, but they don't
yeah,
understand the solution.
yeah.
But tell us more about how Bitcoin aligns with your values.
Well, it aligns with my values because I see it. I mean, I mentioned it on another on Stacey's podcast. Actually, I see a little bit of myself in Bitcoin because I see Bitcoin as a. It's not really, but it's sort of how I see it is a rebellious act because it's the solution to the problem we've had for so long, and it doesn't care. It just is designed to do what it does, and it just carries on regardless of anything else, regardless of what else happens around it. It will always do its thing. So I just resonated with it because all my life really, I will stand out as a little bit rebellious. I don't mean it I'm not rebellious in a nasty sort of a violent way or anything like that, but I will stand up against things in a room full of people where they all nod along. I'll be the one who puts my hand up and says no. And generally, it does me no favors in life whatsoever. But yeah, so I connect with Bitcoin in that way. The price that everyone goes on about, it sort of goes over my head a little bit. I appreciate that it will go up and it'll make us all very wealthy people at some stage. But it's a secondary thing to me. It's more the freedom it allows, the peer-to-peer thing, the fact that you can pay somebody for something anywhere in the world in the blink of an eye without any third party at all, just a transaction between two people. That's perfection to me. That's how transactions should be. If I want to make a transaction, we buy all of our stock from China, so we have huge export bills to pay, huge transport bills as well. And when we do the transactions, because it's all done in American dollars, obviously there's an exchange rate that fluctuates. And actually, up until recently, it's been pretty poor for us because the pound to the dollar. But there's a huge amount of money they charge in fees. So again, Bitcoin, if we could get out of Australia to accept Bitcoin, which he won't, um, it would be even easier. There would be a transaction fee of next to nothing. So it solves a lot of problems.
Yeah.
But we're all waiting for the world to catch up. We're just, it's quite frustrating to be so early into something. And when you try and explain to people, it just goes over their head. They won't even acknowledge it. They won't even accept that they need to learn something about it, which is really frustrating.
Yeah. And why do you think that is? You're in the UK, and UK adoption is a little bit behind much of the world. Yet you are faced with the same inflation, housing, and all of those type of costs that bring many of us to Bitcoin. Why do you think the UK is a little bit behind?
Um, my personal opinion on that is we're a country of rule takers. There's often a joke about how British people love to queue, and it's kind of a reflection of the characteristic of British people generally. They don't mind queuing, whereas other people hate queuing. But then a British person will stand at the end of the queue, and if it takes an hour to get to the front, they'll stay in that queue for an hour. And that's the mentality. So they see the laws and the rules and everything they're meant to do, and they generally just follow it. They don't question it. It's, well, that's what the government said, or that's what they say. That's what we got to do. And they don't seem to question anything. It's why the whole COVID thing here was an absolute nightmare. People just fell into it. They just followed the rules, and it's for me, it's really annoying because when it's your nature to question things, it's horrible to see everyone else just not question anything at all. Even to this day, after COVID, there are people who say, "Oh well, it happened. Never mind." You think, "God, haven't you got a question about it? Don't you want to ask why they shut a whole country down?" So yeah, I think in this country, its adoption is going to be extremely slow. It wouldn't surprise me if we were one of the last to emerge with anything to do with Bitcoin. And I've tried to, as I said before we started, I've tried to go onto a Bitcoin standard myself, and it is almost impossible in this country. When I was recently speaking, I phoned people like the mortgage company, companies, banks I've got loans with, and I was didn't exactly explain to them I wanted to pay in Bitcoin, because that would have been probably would have got my accounts frozen. But I explained that I wanted to stop paying by direct debit. I just want to pay online or by telephone, by card every month, so I got more control of things. And they all questioned that to begin with anyway. Why do you want to cancel your direct debit? Are you aware that you'll miss payments if you don't pay by direct debit? I said, no, I won't miss payments. I said, I've got it organised, and I'll just pay by card. And most of them refused. They didn't want to take card payments. The mortgage company won't take a card payment. The two loans, they won't take a card payment. They'll only do direct debit. So I had real problems with that. And the mortgage and the loans were the biggest things I wanted to sort out. So I've had to keep those on direct debits. I've had to keep those with the bank. But all the other stuff, all the other utilities, the electric, the gas, the water, the phone bills, the internet, all that sort of stuff, I'm now paying with my Bitcoin. So I've managed to separate out what I need to keep in the bank and what I can take from the bank after I've paid myself and convert straight into Bitcoin, which is good because now it means every available pound I earn now goes into Bitcoin. Whereas before it was difficult with the timing of things to move to Bitcoin, or, knowing how much to move to Bitcoin. So it's much easier for me now, but I definitely can't go full Bitcoin standard here.
So you pay as many of your bills with a credit card, which just explain how that works. Does it's
Well, it's
it converts it to the pound?
no, it's not my favorite way to hold my Bitcoin. I've got various different wallets. I use a Bitbox to store the vast amount of my Bitcoin, and I just leave that. But I've got a Ledger wallet, which I know some people aren't too happy with. I'm not overly happy keeping any in there, but it serves a purpose at the moment. So I keep an amount in there, usually up to about 6 or 7,000. That stays there, and because of that, because the Ledger, you get a Ledger card, which is a MasterCard. So you can just load your MasterCard up with Bitcoin, and then you can just use it online or out shopping or wherever they accept MasterCard. Except, strangely, petrol stations where it's pay at pump, it doesn't take the card for some reason. I don't know why. So you have to go into the kiosk and pay. But yeah, that's how I do it now. So I just I know an amount that has to go into my Ledger, every month or every week I do it. And then I just gradually pay bills as and when they need paying with that, and buy any groceries and stuff like that with it as well. And then the other stuff that wouldn't accept my card payments are just direct debit to the bank still, unfortunately. Unfortunately, still tied to the bank.
Well, good for you. So, in a way, for you, it's like spend and replace because all of your money is in Bitcoin. So you don't feel like, oh, I'm paying that $20 bill, and in 5 years' time, that's going to be a $300 bill or whatever. You're
I
not
do a little
thinking
bit.
like that.
Well, I do, and I have done. But what I've done is I've separated. I've got my own Bitcoin reserve, if you like. So I've got an amount I will not touch. That'll stay in my Bitbox and it'll be there forever. And I'll add to that as well as I go along. But I decided to do it this way. I also think Bitcoin needs to be used. I think it needs to be used more. It was about a year ago, I was of a different mindset. In fact, it's it's reflected in my house because I tore up the floors upstairs in my house. I was going to replace them. So I tore up the carpet, got to the floorboard. Floorboard was not very good, so I decided to board over the floorboards, and then I was going to put new floor in altogether. And I thought I'll use the small amount I've got on my ledger card. I'll just buy the flooring with that. But I think it was at a time where Bitcoin was pumping a little bit. And every time I went to buy my flooring, I could not bring myself to do it. Even to this day, I still got the boards on my flooring upstairs. I still haven't done it because I just can't bring myself to spend that amount of my Bitcoin on flooring, because I know every time I look at that floor, if I look at that floor in 5 years' time, I'll be thinking, oh my God. So yeah, there is that element to it as well, but less so now because I decided I wanted to go onto a Bitcoin standard. I thought it's fine if I separate out the amount I'm keeping. If I'm happy with that, then that's fine. Everything else I use it for. Plus, I'm not really altering the amount in my ledger wallet. That 6,000, 7,000, whatever I got there, remains that. In fact, it's going up. But I'm just taking now my salary, the vast majority of my salary goes on to that. So it's that bit that's my salary is getting used. So I don't really see that as Bitcoin in a way. It's just my salary that would have been fiat, but I put it over there. And actually, it earns me Bitcoin because I get 2% cash back when I pay on the ledger card, and that comes to me in Bitcoin. So that's a plus.
Well, I give you a lot of credit because that is the next step. And I like to focus on what Jeff Booth suggests. And as you know, you might know, Jeff Booth says that Bitcoin will fail as a store of value if it fails as a medium of exchange. So we need more people like you and others that are going to start using it as money and a medium of exchange. So I give you a lot of credit. I'm also working on that. And I've spoken to many people who are actually on the Bitcoin standard, and they are very happy and calm, and they don't look at it the same way once you get fully into it. But I know it's still early because it's not so easy, right?
I mean, we've kind of got it easy. Yeah, I mean, there's parts of the world where they have to use it to transact. They don't have a choice, and we're in this bubble where it's sort of not an emergency to use it really because everything's okay, but it's not gonna be okay. It's there will be a need to use it for everyone at some point because of the way that money's being printed, to infinity is it's crazy. I mean, we had the news today in the UK. I think the new Labour government, which I don't approve of, they have spent already or borrowed already £15 billion more than they said they were going to. They've only been there for a year. It's crazy. It's just, well, we can print that forever, so let's just print that forever. They don't care about the value of anything at all.
Well, like you and I know, we're on a debt-based system, and that means they can only continue to borrow and print money forever, and that's part of the problem.
Yeah.
And that brings me to your anti-woke, anti-racism, anti-WEF, anti-fiat, and anti-globalist. Tell us, were you anti everything before Bitcoin, or has it become more anti since Bitcoin?
I was always anti WEF, anti. Actually, it became a lot more prevalent during COVID because that highlighted a huge amount of things. I think things that I already thought, but quietly to myself, when the whole COVID thing happened, I became quite vocal about it because I also experienced things during COVID which were not particularly nice. I chose not to comply with certain rules. I certainly didn't get any jab. But two particular things happened which really disturbed me. One was, the whole mask thing. If you went into a supermarket or wherever you went, you had to wear a mask. I didn't want to wear a mask, so there was no way that was happening. So I went to the supermarket without a mask. And of course, they had security on the doors then to check you were wearing your mask. So I would always carry a little card with me that said I'm exempt from wearing a mask, and they couldn't question it. And I knew that, which is why I had the card in the first place. So I just presented that. But when I went into the supermarket the one day, I was followed in by somebody who came right up to my ear and shouted in my ear, "What makes you so special?" And was quite confrontational. I'm not a confrontational person. I just want to go and do my business and leave. And nobody, everyone heard it, but nobody stopped the fella. Nobody, because they're all wearing the mask. That I was looked upon like I was some sort of evil person who's just walked into the supermarket, which was crazy. So yeah, there was that experience along with a few other things.
Well,
One as
because
well.
the belief
Well,
was, right, that if you're not wearing a mask, you're exposing everybody else. That was the belief at the time.
that was the belief, yeah, which I just always thought was crazy because, well, this came in handy actually because if you inhale this and you blow the vapor through a mask, it's still the same amount of vapor that comes out as if you didn't have the mask on. So that sort of
Interesting.
indicates not very good at stopping things.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting times. It's funny. The episode I uploaded today was with Jeeves, who is from India, and he had to get 3 jabs. I also had to get jabs to fly to Zimbabwe. And on that note, we have a very we're a British colony. And so I was raised also, if I would ask why, it's because I told you so. I want a better reason than that. And I think Bitcoiners do question. We question things, and that is going to be good for us as long as we can keep our coins and Bitcoin secure. It is going to pay off for the long run that we do question.
Yeah. It's always the one running theme I find with every Bitcoiner I speak to is the question of things. Because I find my politics usually aligns with theirs as well. It's this anti-globalist, anti-web. Most Bitcoiners are probably anti-web, anti-who, anti-globalist as well. So it's definitely a running theme, I think, which I think is why we're perhaps early and not late to the Bitcoin thing. I think it'll take another 5, 10 years at least before most people are even aware of what Bitcoin is. Sadly,
Well, when Bitcoin reaches 100,000 again, people might pay some attention. Then when it gets to 1 million, they definitely will.
I can't. Yeah, that happened actually. The last person I orange pilled was a friend of mine that I used to work with years and years ago. At any event I go to, birthdays or weddings or wherever they are, I'm always wearing something Bitcoin, or I've got a hat on, or I've got my jeans on and I've got Bitcoin, or I always speak about Bitcoin at these places. They all think I'm nuts. I still speak about it anyway. Even a wedding, actually, I thought at a wedding you're going to wear a suit. So I thought I can't really wear the hoodie or anything with the Bitcoin on. So I managed to find Bitcoin cufflinks. So I wore those. And I spoke to several people about Bitcoin there. But the last one I orange pilled was a friend of mine who was very anti-Bitcoin wherever I brought it up at certain events. But he actually, when it last reached, when it got to over 100,000 last time, I had a phone call from him saying, "Are you in? Am I able to pop in and can I have a talk about Bitcoin with you?" I said, "Interesting." I said, "Yeah, come round. No problem. I'll tell you all about it, show you what to do, show you how to buy it." And he did. And he's been full on, pretty much full on Bitcoin since. And he's buying Bitcoin. He's even got his kids' Bitcoin set up for his kids who are still young. I think they're both under 10. So I said, good for you. Keep buying it, he said.
You never know when your message will be heard, and you might just be one of the touch points. Then they hear it from a few other people and they start looking into it, which is what we're hoping for, right? Because what Bitcoin allows is for every person all over the world to buy Bitcoin and front run these big institutions which are coming.
Yeah. I think actually when Orange pull it, I've got another one actually next week, which is a friend of this friend. He was talking to him about it and he said, I can't quite explain it the way you explained it to me. So he said, do you mind if he pops round to your house and you can show him what to do? I said, yeah, no problem. Tell him where I am and I'll tell him all about it. So I've got another one next weekend.
So tell us how you do Orange Pill. Do you start with the history of money? Do you start with inflation?
Generally, I ask them what they know about it. And interestingly, the friend who I said was the last one I'd orange pilled, who was dead against Bitcoin every time I spoke about it, I found when I asked him about it, he knew quite a lot about it already. So he'd taken some information in and then decided to find out a little bit more himself. So by the time I'm speaking to him, I ask him that question, what do you know about it? And they start reading stuff off and I say, well, you've actually looked into it quite a bit now. Well, I've looked at some things on YouTube, and I've Googled a few things. I said, so what do you need me to tell you about it for then? I need to know how I can buy it. And that's what they're asking really, is how can I buy it? So I don't really go into too much detail because they've already covered the basics themselves and they're sort of already on the way to the journey of finding out more about it, which was my journey. I think is actually the journey everyone should have. I don't think they necessarily need me to tell them my information about it. I will give them information about it and I'll tell them it's luxury and this, that, and it's a better store of value than gold. And they tend not to believe me on that one, by the way. I don't know why, because they still think gold is king.
5,000.
Yeah, well, I dare say, because if you understand what Bitcoin is and the portability of it and the scarcity of it, you then should realize that, my God, is far better than gold. That you have to spend, if you want to move your gold, if you actually own your gold anyway, if you own some, that's the first thing you've got to do. You've got to find out if the gold you bought you actually, it might be a lot of lead bars sat around somewhere, painted gold, which has happened, hasn't. So yeah, I don't go into it too much with them. I cover the basics. They already know quite a lot by the time they're sat with me. And then I mostly just showing them how to buy it, where to buy it, and then how to store it. I emphasize all the time the huge importance of storing it, cold storage, not leaving it on an exchange. I always say to them, if you want to buy your first Bitcoin, then fine, use Coinbase, Coin Corner, or wherever you want to buy it from. I said, you can leave it in there. It's perfectly safe, but don't leave it in there too long. Really get your cold storage sorted out. And every time you buy it, then just transfer it straight into your cold storage. Then you know it's safe.
Isn't it better to build up a certain amount in, say, a Coinbase and then transfer it because of the UTXOs?
Probably. But I have a trust issue, so I don't leave it there. Even if I buy £10 worth is going straight into my cold storage. I can't leave it in an exchange because that to me is like a bank. It's like I've got Bitcoin, but do I own Bitcoin? No, because it's on the exchange, so I don't actually own it until it's in my cold storage. So the transfer fees and all that I kind of ignore. It's a bit high with some people, and I know on exchanges the price you're buying at is inflated. Not actually, the price of Bitcoin is usually higher than what the price is, so they're earning out of that as well. But I don't care because anything under a million is cheap. For me to quarrel over a couple of dollars, it's not going to matter in the end, I don't think.
You're right. So has Bitcoin changed you?
Has this changed me? I was gonna answer that with humour. I was gonna say I was an asshole before, but no. I don't think it's changed a lot of things in my life. Got me it's got me thinking more how I run my life, how I live my life. Before I never used to value money at all. I never used to save it. I didn't see the point. I'd spend anything spare I had pretty much straight away. So I literally saw no value in it at all. Now with Bitcoin, I do see the value in it because it's proper money. It's actual real money, not the fake stuff we've been used to. And it teaches you more about value and what value is. So it's changed that aspect of my life. It's got me more into getting back into my training, things like that. Better organised generally in my life as well. Yes, it's changed certain aspects, but I don't think it's changed me as a person because I sometimes say that I was quite Bitcoin before Bitcoin was invented. Because, like I think most Bitcoiners are, I think they're Bitcoin before it even came along. They were just waiting for it to happen. And then it happened. And then you find this wonderful thing that changes that you thought should be around all along. Actually, when you know about it, you kind of wonder how somebody didn't come up with this thing way before now. But I guess technology and not, which I don't understand the technological side of it, so I won't get into that too much. Goes over my head.
So you were a saver waiting for Bitcoin, but really it did change your mindset. It changed you from the fiat mindset where we have to spend everything quick, short-term thinking, to a long-term thinker because now you have a vehicle that you believe in.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that aspect definitely has changed an awful lot. Plus now I also think much harder about spending because now most of my money is now converted straight to Bitcoin. It does make you think twice when you go to buy an item that I wouldn't have thought about at all with fiat money. But when it's your Bitcoin, you sort of hesitate. You think, oh, I'll wait another week and see how much it goes up. It's crazy, really. But yeah, now I've separated the two. I've got my reserve and the amount that I can use. It's a bit easier now because I know that amount. I've forgotten about it. That can go to zero, actually. It almost doesn't matter. So I've got the reserve amount, which will just stay there and be added to, of course.
To go deeper down the rabbit hole, do you think there's a spiritual side to Bitcoin?
You're going to turn me into Alpha now.
Just a little.
Actually, I listened to the whole Alpha podcast. He is a very deep individual. Brilliant, though. Really intelligent. Actually, I think actually it gave people have lost religion quite a lot over recent times. And I think when Bitcoin came along, it had that effect on people because they'd lost God or lost religion or lost faith in all that. A human being will always try and search for something to hold on to, something to follow, something to have faith in, something that gives you hope. And I think Bitcoin does all of that. It ticks all of those boxes. It's almost a religion in itself. So yeah, it's got a spiritual side to it, no doubt at all. It's hard for me to talk about stuff like that because I was raised as a Catholic, but I'm pretty much an atheist. it's sort of all crumbled for me. I don't really believe in. I would like to believe that there's a God, uh, but I just don't. Everything else tells me there isn't. But yeah,
I just feel like there's something intelligent out there. And whatever that is, that's not Bitcoin. Bitcoin is just a tool that allows us, for me, to be a better person. So that's the only reason I like to answer that question, because it makes me want to be better
yeah,
now that there's hope. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Hope is really important.
Yeah.
Actually, when you talk about it making you a better person, I suppose that's true. I wouldn't be orange pilling people if it wasn't from a well. I wouldn't be sort of doing the similar orange pilling people in the fiat world for anything. So, but the fact I do it with Bitcoin is because I want you, when you try and orange pill someone, you want them to see the thing that you see, to have the hope that you've got, and you want them to be okay. So I guess it's quite a caring thing to do to orange pill someone. I've even thought about dropping leaflets around in my neighbourhood, asking if anyone wants to know about Bitcoin knock number 75 and tell you all about it. But I thought that's probably a bad idea.
That's a
Having random strangers come into my door.
that's a pretty cool thing to do. Even just the thought, even thinking of that. Good for you.
Yeah, maybe I'll do it one day. Don't know.
Yeah. So we're almost at the end. And right before we started, you mentioned that on X, there was some big news about Jack Mallett. There's been so much news lately. Good news about Bitcoin, uncertain news about the tariffs. How much do you keep up with that?
Quite a lot. I watch quite a lot of news. In fact, sadly, the only TV I watch these days is either football or it's news. So yeah, I watch a lot of GB news over here. I definitely don't take any BBC in anymore or any Sky News. And I watch a lot of American news as well. So I watch Fox News Channel quite a lot just to keep up with everything that's going on over there. Yeah, lots of good news for Bitcoin. It's generally always good news for Bitcoin. I know there's dips and there's sideways price action and this, that, and the other. Ultimately, though, Bitcoin does what Bitcoin does and will be fine and will work its way through pretty much everything. I know there's quite a lot of talk at the moment about decoupling from the stock exchange, from stocks, from the markets, which does seem to look like it is happening a little bit. I do see a bit of truth in that. But for all we know, we could see Bitcoin go back down the other way again. I noticed Bitcoin is delayed in its reaction to the way markets work sometimes. It is a week or two beyond sometimes. But yeah, I keep up to date with all the news, the tariffs and everything, which I think is a great idea from Trump. The tariffs, I actually think it's really good. Most people seem to hate it, uh, but I think he's right. Countries have taken advantage of America's wealth and success, I guess, and it needed to be changed from their point of view. It was completely unfair. I also come from a Brexit point of view. For someone who voted for Brexit, unsurprisingly, you'll probably think massive unfairness in trade. I always thought we should be on, what is it? Is it WTO, World Trade Organization? I always thought everybody should just follow that and then do your own deals. If you can't do a deal or if you haven't got a deal with a country, just default to the WTO, go along with that, and then when it needs changing, get your own deal in place. But the things like the EU, that's massively corrupt, massively undemocratic, sorry, and full of corruption. I'm glad we're out of that, but I hope to God this current government doesn't pull us back into it, which I think they might.
Well, the good news for us is we have Bitcoin. We can be on an outside rail because governments are going to do what governments are going to do. We know for a fact they're going to continue to print money. They're going to continue to be on a debt based system, no matter who's in power. So we buy Bitcoin.
The one thing that really worries me with the talk coming out of the EU is CBDC. If they get CBDC in the EU, and there is talk of them putting one in place by October this year, once they have people locked into a CBDC, that's your freedom gone. That is then full control for government. If they want to stop you flying, they'll stop you flying. If they want to stop you buying 2 or 3 steaks a week, you can only buy one a week or one a month. That's what they'll do. They'll program the money. And that's freedom gone. You won't even be able to get Bitcoin if that happens, because of course you're not going to allow a CBDC to buy Bitcoin.
Yeah, I spoke to Ifrat Finnegan, and she does You're the Voice podcast, and she's an expert on CBDCs.
Yeah, I've seen quite a lot of her stuff.
Into depth on that, and you're right. And then yesterday I spoke to James Lavish, and he was talking about the decoupling. So you're right on track with everything. We'll just watch and continue to stack sats.
I can tell I'm on track with things because people still think I'm nuts.
And on that note, I will post links to your X below, and I really appreciate you chatting today.
Thanks for inviting me. Nice to speak to you.